Live tonight from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 3 of the 2021 SimSeats Real Sim Racing Cup Series. And happy that you're with us from the virtual entertainment capital of the world. We're alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, joined by Jonathan Burke. As always, our producer is Hugo Luis with our in-race reporter Dylan Coyle, rounding out our RaceSpot TV team this afternoon. And Jonathan, we're coming off of our second race of the year where we've seen now 2 different points-paying race winners to start off this 2021 campaign from one intermediate racetrack to another. But there are very few, if any, similarities aside from that mileage total between Homestead last week and Las Vegas tonight.
Now, Homestead is very unique in the way it's raced and the way the package was. Here we head to Las Vegas, where I think we're going to see a little bit more similarities to the real world and also a bit more similarities to other tracks we're going to see throughout the year. Obviously, Chicagoland not on the schedule, neither is Kentucky, but there are similar tracks. Kansas is one of them. Charlotte is a fast track, although a little bit more square in that front section. So we're going to see, I think, some racing that is not going to go away for the rest of the year to come. This is going to be a real test for the drivers, too, to see where they are in comparison to everyone else at these mile-and-a-halves.
If this past weekend in the NASCAR Cup Series, or even last Tuesday with the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series were any indication, it's going to be big packs, at least early in the runs here from Vegas. You take a look, though, third race of this championship. We've got a long way to go. A championship preview next Monday night from Phoenix. A little bit of IROC action in the mix, and then some dirt racing at Bristol to close out the month of March. But coming into this race, if you count tonight, 18 races still to go to the postseason. We are a long way from talking about championships. But that being said, as we take a look at your points through 2 weeks, Andrew Freenage up there, no shock. Jeremy Miller topping the individual point standings. Jonathan, that's aided by, of course, his race win at Daytona. Both he and Brandon Bowie, who sits 6th in the overall points at the moment. Those 2 drivers locked into the playoffs with their race wins thus far.
Yeah, the thing that interests me about Jeremy Miller is that he got a top 3 out of last week at Homestead. It wasn't just like the win is the only points he has. He finished really well for himself down at Homestead. And Freenage not having a win yet, I don't think that's going to stay like that. We're heading to, again, Las Vegas is a track he's very good at, and same with Phoenix. So we really do have to watch for this 88 machine. And there was a couple as well up there that were making some noise last week that we thought could have got the win. We thought Sam Nieto was almost a shoo-in, but late race tire strategy turned that on its head.
It did, and even if you count the non-points races, so the Clash and then both of the duels, we've still not seen a repeat winner. Nick Barra, Trevor Trigo, Dane Cruz, the winners of all of those 3. Of course, doesn't count for anything if it wasn't a points race, and none of those drivers top 10 in the points at the moment, but that could maybe show that they'll be a force to be reckoned with for the other 3 super speedway races that are still to come on this regular season. And we will have a bump this evening. Of course, we had several drivers not make the show at Daytona, but that was its own unique qualifying format with the duels and whatnot. Nobody was sent home last week at Homestead, Jonathan, but 44 drivers attempting to qualify right now for 43 spots on the grid means somebody is going home. And 2 new faces to the series starting this week, making their 2021 debuts for both Eric Stanford and Stephen Durham, as they've been bumped up and they'll make their season debut here this afternoon.
Yeah, we didn't see a few normal faces. Mainly, I think Daniel Eberhardt was practicing for a Road to Pro race for the Homestead week, but now I think his focus is back here, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, too. I certainly kind of missed him a little bit at Homestead because he's a very aggressive and very, very good top-running driver. And also, here's Matt Danson, I don't know, preparing for a lap or just slowly just taking in the sights of Las Vegas.
Yeah, trying to heat up the tires. He doesn't have a ton of time, so I don't know if I would have put it this close to the clock for that Logitech G Altus Esports entry. You can see top left, only 1 minute 15 seconds left. That's going to be ample time to get if not 2 laps in, but if you had any issues, wouldn't be enough time to reset. He is one of 2 drivers who have yet to qualify. Only Danson and Tice have yet to put a time on the board. Gary Weaver is the bubble driver with a 30.827. Would be the driver going home if Danson and or Tice improve on him. And it looks like Danson's going to use this first lap, Jonathan, as a wind-up lap. So he's got 15 seconds or so to get back to the start-finish line if he's hoping for lap number 2 to be his flyer. This is awfully tight.
A really close call. It's interesting to see this from Danson. I mean, I don't even know if he's going to make it because it's going to tick down to 30 right as he gets to the line.
This is tight. Meanwhile, Joseph Tice on track. He is using this as a fast lap. Danson goes slowest because he rode the outside, but he's going to have to try to get around in 16 seconds. It's going to be tight. Tice did put down a lap at 35.64. That's good enough for 40th. So Gary Weaver now to the brink in 43rd spot. Matt Danson missed the Daytona opener. Can he get to the start-finish line at Daytona? And now in Vegas in time? The clock strikes 0. Does his time count? It does. Matt Danson, pole position with no more than a 1/10 of a second to spare. Are you kidding me?
You just got here, Matt. You have to do that to me already?
Way, way closer than I would have ever dared to do it. It's heartbreak for Gary Weaver. Let's go trackside and take a look at your SimSeat starting grid. And you watched it down to the final second. Matt Danson on pole position with a 30.68, and he will be joined alongside by the number 24 of Grant Davis. So Daniel Eberhardt, Sam Nieto going to double up for 02 and 30 to 4th with Kyle Trudell and Jeremy Miller. Jonathan, our top 6.
Looking down the order, Dominic Howe in the 86 lines up P7, Andrew Freenotch the 88 in P8, Liam Sheen in P9, Adam de Blasio, good start for him in P10, Michael Laraya just outside the top 10, and Daniel Phillip in P12.
Brandon Bowie is going to start 13th spot alongside Marius Leschinski. Bradley Burke and Dane Cruz will double up for 15th and 16th with Nick Silver and Sean Casto on row 9.
Looking at the top 20 right now, William Schwitt with that excellent save we saw at Homestead lines up 19th, Chris Rabel in P20, Ross Cato back in P21, Anthony Fredericks in P22, Shane Parrish with the insane rig setup in P23, and David Washington probably a little further back than he's expecting in P24.
There was some work to do in the second half of the field. The likes of Garrett Weinmaster and Stove Price Jr. in 26th. Thomas George, Joe Yakes through 28th position. Kyle Kamer and Eric Stanford, your top 30.
Eric de Blasio in number 11 in 31st. Steve Durham in 32nd. Brian Shameless lines up 33rd. Our very own Dylan Coral lines up 34th. Matthew Moore back in 35th. And James Ross in 36th.
And then towards the back, Trevor Trigo, Michael Kaczynski, Tom Morano, and Nicholas Mara, your top 40. And then those drivers that were sweating, Joseph Tyson, Sean Kalis through 42nd, about a half a second off of the pole time in qualifying. And at the very back of the grid, again, fortunately not the bubble driver at the end of that one, but 43rd on the grid for this race. Right there was that race, or that lap, I should say, by Dylan Coy, or Rhett McBride, sorry. The difference between he and Gary Weaver, who gets bumped in the 44th spot, you see a 6.10, a 6.20, so that is 1/100th of a second. That allows Rhett McBride in the 15 tonight, by the way. A little bit of a number swap. Rhett McBride changes from the 5 to the 15. That opens up Joseph Tice's long-occupied number 5 for use. Rhett McBride makes the show by 1/100th of a second. Gary Weaver gets his first DNS of the season. It's a deferred start, Jonathan. So even though Gary Weaver's not going to race tonight in an opportunity to score points, he will still have this race counted as a start when it comes to making 15 starts to be eligible for the playoffs, and he will also get 10 bonus points for attempting to qualify. So he joins Schmidt, Danson, Howe, and Weinmaster, those 4 drivers who got deferred starts from failing to qualify at Daytona. So it's kind of funny. You fail to make the show, but your 10-point consolation is actually more points than maybe the back 6 or 7 people will actually get in things.
Yeah, and it's there to kind of encourage this so that we do get a bump, so that we do get, you know, a full field of 43 cars out on this Las Vegas track. And it's going to be, I think, a bit hectic out there, especially in the start. You mentioned this big pack racing. I think this big pack is going to be roaring around here for these first 10 laps until these tires wear off.
Couple of additional rule changes that we should mention as qualifying is wrapped up, and we're going to be going trackside to go racing here in just a few moments, is the fact that tires have changed. That was a big factor, Jonathan, of course, last week at the Homestead Miami Speedway, with only 3 sets of tires as the standard available for races coming into this year. A lot of drivers had to ration what their tire strategy was going to be, and in the end, it did have an effect on the strategy, and that's why Brandon Bowie ended up going to victory lane, at least in part. The fact that there was only 3 sets of tires available, that has been changed. The drivers did a vote over the course of the week, and they got the more than 2/3 majority necessary for a rule change to be considered, and now they have bought themselves an extra set of tires. They go from 3 to 4, and as I think that's Liam Sheen having a bit of fun here in the final minute of warm-up. Good as opportunity as any to bring in our RaceSpot TV in-race reporter, Dylan Coyle. And Dylan, we were talking about the tires before we went on air tonight, from 3 to 4. How much does that really change things?
It can change how aggressive you're going to get over the course of the race, and quite frankly, it's something that I am happy about. I mean, for myself at least, like maybe not for strategy-wise, but it's going to lead to some really awesome racing. It's going to lead to some unbelievably intense racing as well, especially in stages that we aren't necessarily used to seeing all the tenseness from. But yeah, I'm happy about it. So yeah.
And Homestead versus Las Vegas, what's going to be the challenge in this one to get around here for 200 miles?
I think it's just the nature of this track, because if you really want to push it, you could go full out each lap, but the tire wear will come down. So it's just finding that balance, I think. Unfortunately, the draft here is such an important part of it. I mean, you can gain 0.3 a lap if you're in the draft versus if you're out of it. And after that, it's just not it's not the same level as a track like Homestead, where you can really race guys. There's a lot of different lines. It's a 1.5 miles. It's a cookie cutter. You know what I mean? It's not going to necessarily be the most invigorating time as a driver. It might look great, but the draft battles aren't always fun.
Well, car is on track, so we'll let you get to it. There's also one additional rule change that's not going to have a huge factor tonight, and it's another one that the drivers voted on, is that the time in the sim is going to move at 2 times actual speed. That decision was made because these races are 50% of a NASCAR Cup Series race. Well, now that the weather moves twice as fast as real time, the start time and the end time of a half of a length of a NASCAR race will actually cover the same amount of time weather-wise as a real one. So that could have been a factor last week, because it would have meant that Homestead would have finished under the lights. Jonathan, we're racing in the afternoon at Las Vegas for 134 laps and 201 miles this afternoon. Not a huge factor tonight, but that could be a factor that plays in later on this year as we take a look at all the onboard angles with our drivers we run on board with.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be playing a factor, and it may not play a factor like majorly here, but in terms of track temp and stuff like that, it could play a factor. Even the shadows going down into turn 1, that's a huge factor late in the race over if that high line is going to work or not. So we're going to have to see what happens really right here, but it should be a very interesting race tonight.
I'll tell you what, I am so happy to be in Las Vegas, literally and figuratively, as we get set for the third race of this 2021 SimSeats RealSimRacing Cup Series. And as always, we're happy that you're spending your Monday evening with us here on RaceSpot TV. The pace car going to dive down and in, and it is the defending IRAP's Winter Series champion, Matt Danson, who's going to be on control of the field for this one, as we say, let's go racing from Las Vegas.
I said Eberhardt was absent from Homestead Miami. Well, he didn't take too long to make his presence known in this race already.
Danson leading the draft, as Dylan talked about. It's going to be a huge factor tonight. Was not the spot you wanted to be, and now it's the 24, wash it up from third, but Eberhardt went third to first, now 3 wide for the race lead. Eberhardt wants nothing to do with it, and Kyle Trudell, who started 5th, wants to go to the race lead, but Danson going to have the advantage off of 4.
Yeah, I think Eberhardt trying to be smart. He got that bonus point for leading that first lap, and now he's like, okay, let's just ride it out. It's a long race, 200 miles. Let's just take our time here. And also try and save tires. Remember, if this thing goes green, we saw in the real life, tire would be a factor, and I think more in the sim. It's a softer kind of tire package that we have with this season build. So tire wear is still going to be a factor even in a track like Las Vegas.
Yeah, drivers actually a little bit earlier on were talking about the tire degradation and kind of some of those concerns. And you mentioned Homestead, of course. We've already talked about, yeah, they're both intermediate racetracks, but there's not a lot that you can compare between the two, as that 7 of Trudell bobbles up the hill in 2, nearly into the wall, and Danson looks down on the bottom. Dane Cruz had mentioned earlier this week that the right rear does burn off pretty rough here at Vegas. Of course, this scan is a lot more forgiving than what the surface is like these days. We'll talk about the bumps in 1 and 2. There are some bumps in 3 and 4, but they are much worse now than they were when this racetrack was laser scanned several years ago, so it could always be worse. Trudell recovered from that bobble, maintains the lead. There's Grant Davis way up the road into the shadows of the billboards in 1 and 2. That's the second time he's gotten out of control. This time it's going to cost him a lot of spots.
Yeah, let's talk about that right rear. It's that rear end kicking out, and you're having to catch that car. So the real thing with this fixed setup is it's loose. You can even see right there, right in front of Davis, Jeremy Miller just got a little bit loose. That rear end wants to step out. In order to catch it, you got to counter steer a little bit, but you're going to waste a lot of tire wear on that right rear. You don't want to be sliding sideways for too long. Otherwise, that right rear is going to be gone in a moment's notice.
And a close call. I think that was Miller who came by, nearly sideswiped the 24, but it all balances out, and Grant Davis finds himself in the hole early in this one. Started 2nd on the grid, but he has fallen down to about, I'd say, 12th position or so. So that's down 10 spots early in this one on the bottom of the racetrack. That's the 52 of Sean Castno tucking in line. Bradley Burke up the road. Chris Rabel behind, just inside of your top 20. That 29, though, of Rabel got real tight off of the corner, and now here comes David Washington to his inside.
Yeah, it's going to be those kind of mistakes that give the passing opportunities. It's really, really hard to pass just kind of on pure pace, especially in this series because it is a fixed setup series. So you got to look for those mistakes. You got to look for those drivers are a little loose or a little tight. That's going to be your opportunity.
You can hear Washington get it out of the throttle. One of the storylines yesterday with the NASCAR Cup Series Pennzoil 400 here was that overcast conditions kept the temps down a little bit, and drivers were able to stay flat-footed well into a run. Of course, another change that was made for 2021 is that we're no longer running this race like every other race on a default day in May, which is what iRacing sets as kind of the default day. We've actually set this to be March the 7th, so a little bit cooler track temps and atmospheric temps. It's only 73 degrees Fahrenheit, 92 degrees trackside. If this was a typical May default day, those temps might be up by 10 to 15 degrees in both aspects, so that could help things out a little bit as well. But you see this bit of 2x2 nearly, that's the 03 Leszczynski, the red car up top, and why not? Let's go 3 wide. Jeremy Miller going to stick it in between him and Agnel Phillip.
Just unable to make it stick, though. He tries to go through that middle of the line, but Phillip has the run on the bottom. Leszczynski has the power on the high side, and unfortunately now he's going to lose out to de Blasio here if he's not careful.
Yeah, that was almost bad, as got real tight, and the 27 was fortunate enough to drop back and you're on board with de Blasio here in the number 11 spot, looking up the road. I mean, he's doing his best to stay in the gas. There might have been only a little bit of a lift that time. It's especially tough because, we talk about the draft being important. You want to be behind somebody to be fast, but it also takes that downforce off the front of the car, and that's when that thing can plow pretty quickly.
Yeah, and you really, again, don't want to plow because that burns the right front. Like, really, running this racetrack is almost trying to balance how much of that right front you're using and how much of the right rear you're using. You don't want to overcook either, and one is not better than the other. Burn that right rear, you're going around and round and round in circles. Burn that right front, and you're plowed into the outside wall. Neither is good for a long-term run. As we see this 24 continue to slip backwards, here comes Nick Silver down the inside.
Yeah, I wonder if that, first big slide at a Grant kind of, I don't know, ate up at those tires or heated them up or what, but he has not been able to turn things around since. Was on the attack, trying to get around the boosted Ford Mustang of Dane Cruz, and bit of opportunity as an editor. Reminds you to go to RealSimRacing.club, and you can buy some RSR merch thanks to our friends over at Boosted for hosting that site, title partner of this SimSeats Cup Series last year, but it's just not working for the 24. The 3 of Silver gets on by, the 95 of Bradley Burke gets on through, and
his teammate.
It's kind of, batter up next, right? The 52 of Casto, you got Washington, you got Bowie. I mean, no immediately relief in sight for Grant Davis, down from second to now 15th in just 14 laps.
Yeah, you wonder if he has damage too, if he may have swiped the wall at some point, if there's a little dent to the inside, or maybe he's trying really, really hard to conserve now and try and get the benefit later. It's tough to say. Again, we mentioned overcast conditions for the real-life race, but here, in sunny conditions, 92 degrees track temp, that's still a little toasty. Speaking of toasty, as the 2 leaders on the right are getting a little toasty for the lead.
It was the 7 of Trudell for the longest time, but Danson leading that last time through on the outside, and Sam Nieto has entered the picture. Remember, it was the cars on the inside who had a really good start, right? Eberhardt went up there, got a bonus point, dropped the back. It was Trudell who went to the lead from 5th, but from the outside of row number 2 on the green flag, Sam Nieto entering the picture. He's going to go way to the outside in 3 and 4. As he tries to reel in these cars at the front of the field. Right-hand side, the battle for the race lead. Left-hand side, that mid-pack scrap with that 24 car going the wrong direction. Davis loses another one. Now make it 2 more. Washington, Bowie also able to get around him as Danson solidifies for the moment the race lead up front. He leads by about 4 car lengths.
And we're seeing it as well as up front is in this mid-pack too. There's different lines you can run. You can run that high side, the middle side, and the low line, and you can have good competitive times either way. It's just what are you comfortable with and what is your car comfortable with at the moment. Right now it seems universal theory in 3 and 4, bottom or middle. 1 and 2, it's just kind of anyone's game. You can go high, middle, or low.
We saw a slow car on the apron a while ago, and that's Dominic Howe. He's the only driver that is off of the lead lap at the moment. Other than that, all 42 other cars still scored on the lead lap, and I was just trying to look back to see what happened with Dominic. It's not like he, skipped the drop of the green flag or anything. He started with everybody else, but I believe he may have had a connection issue or something that involved him having to reconnect. If that's the case, -2 is not that bad when that's only about a minute of on-track time. Race leaders lap times in the low 31s. It's about a second to fall off and change already from what we saw early in this one. Looking at Dane Cruz, the number 46 car. He is under fire. Nick Silver going to take a spot away from him on the outside, and behind them, Sean Casto on the move. The Plan B Sales Chevy, but drove it in pretty hard, and that's Bradley Burke, who kind of ends up as the driver getting slide job there. The Toby Christie entry has to check up just a tad bit, and that opens up the door now for the 34 of Bowie. I mean, these drivers unable to get away, putting on a show for these first 20.
Yeah, but we saw in that last lap, like it was an error from the 95 that opened all of that up. It was Burke sliding out of turn 2. As we go ahead and look on the right side of the screen, another battle from the lead. This time, Nieto going to the bottom and Trudell going up top. Again, you can just find wherever it is you want to go and try and make a move. You can see the 95 recovering, even making a pass. It's just a matter of not making a mistake, of keeping your flow in the race. If you make a mistake, you ruin your flow. You're going to go backwards like that 24 was.
I was about to say maybe an opportunity to settle it down, but no, let's go 3 wide again, way to the inside in the center. That's the 90 of Daniel Eberhardt. He'll win that battle for second. They're all trying to chase down Matt Danson, who no more than 5 laps ago was side by side for the lead. Now he's opened up a second, and the fight's going to be for second through 5th right now. So Danson, in an instant, separates himself by quite a good margin.
Yeah, it's those guys fighting, I think, that caused it. I think either Trudell feels like he's burned his tires up, or he's just not comfortable running on the edge as maybe these other guys are, because he fell back a little bit, and then the process of just battling Eberhard and Nieto kind of pushed them back further away from the Australian of Matt Danson. But now it's going to be Eberhard down to chase him down, and we're getting midway through the run. This is where we're going to see like those guys who saved their tires and who is kind of really lost out early on.
I know likely a little bit too early on in this race to get that concerned with, strategy and whatnot, and Vegas is a race, now that ends up with 2 dates on the calendar, a spring date and a fall date in the postseason. As you can see, this mid-pack is awfully busy. Didn't have 2 trips on the calendar last year, only the playoff start for the opener of the round of 12. That one had 4 yellow flags, 20 different lead changes, so it was a crazy race towards the front. Most of the craziness thus far mid-pack here, and for whatever reason, Jonathan, feels like every time we look at a pack, poor Grant Davis is in the middle of it, and he's on the short end. Since we last saw him, it looks like Rabel, Washington, Winemaster, George, and Kamer have all passed him. He's down to 22nd now. I don't see any damage, so my best guess is that he just burned up those tires on a couple of those big slides early and just cannot catch a break with this green flag run continuing. There's a bit of a loose car for the 8 of Kamer off a 2. Small bobble that'll keep the 24 alongside.
Now, the good news for the 24 is that everyone else is starting to lose their tires a little bit, so he's been able to stabilize around the edge of the top 20, but it could get worse. As you can see on board here with Cato, you can see this pack is just an angry group of cars going into 1 and 2. And this is where, like, especially if you're a mid-pack driver, managing your tires is really, really good, because if you've saved well in these first 25 laps, well, the benefit's going to come right now. As you can see, that 24 is falling off. There might be some others falling off. You can pick up a few spots right before pit stops.
It's good to see these drivers kind of widen things out in 1 and 2, and obviously it's a bit of a biased opinion, I'm not going to lie about that, but always been one of my favorite things about Vegas is the fact that you can work kind of anywhere you want, especially down in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 is a little bit tougher. You'll see that the cars on the outside in 3 and 4 aren't as high as they are in 1 and 2, but you still got options. And speaking of which, to the outside in 1 comes Daniel Eberhard. He has eradicated that 1 second advantage that Matt Danson had, and he's working hard to get to the outside.
Looked like he was denied going down the inside into 1 and 2, and Danson put the block on him, and now it's just a straight-up fight for the lead. The interesting thing is Eberhard brought no one with him. Sam Nieto's still a 1.5 seconds off. So now here he comes to try and wind up the inside, using that inside line all the way down the pavement and back on the banking, and then easy said and done right there. Beautiful textbook front stretch pass.
So made it work, and now we'll see if Danson has a counter. Maybe this is exactly what the play for Eberhard was, Jonathan, because you mentioned he got that early lap lead, maybe just wanted the bonus point, and then I think it was lap 2 or 3, they went 3 wide for the race lead, didn't really put up much of a fight, kind of backed out of it and said, you know what, I'm good, dropped the back. Maybe he was content with the bonus point, wanted to save his equipment, and now nearly 30 laps into the run, he looks like one of the best cars on track, not running away from Danson, but maybe this is all by design for the 90.
I know, when we talked to him, like when his 2 wins came in the Winners Series, he mentioned like saving tires was never a strength he had, and I'm wondering if that was kind of his pull. He led that lap early and then wanted to just save his tires, not force himself racing 3 and 2 wide early on, and maybe try now and get a lead and get some distance here, because he still has Matt in his rearview mirror, but he has a fair bit of distance between Nieto, Freenage, and Trudell, where like he's going to be comfortable. Even if he loses the lead and goes back to 2nd place, it's a comfortable 2nd place.
We've had some issues since I last checked in with the cars towards the back of the field. Shane Parrish is off track. So is Eric de Blasio. And now Dominic Howe, no longer the last car on track, but still 2 laps down in 41st. So de Blasio Parrish to the garage early in this one. Still yellow flag free in this. And maybe at the point where we can start talking about strategy. I mean, it's a 134-lap race. If it goes green, you don't have to worry about that extra tire set available. But what is, the objective number? If you can get to 45 or so, that's, I think, enough to cut this one into a two-stopper, split the race into thirds, and I would imagine that may be what these drivers are shooting for. As left-hand side of your screen, you can see the positions gained and dropped.
Yeah, and we saw, again, the real-life Cup race, we saw that there was a decent distance on tires as compared to older tires, and we're going to see that again. The best lap ran by Daniel Eberhardt's at 30.2, while the last lap ran was a 31.5, so there's almost a full second-and-a-half drop-off, if you can believe it, old tires to new tires. So it's about really managing when you want to go and then managing when you want to, get that fuel number. Again, 45, that's a nice, even number to split this race up. But some people may want to go earlier, try and get out ahead using that fresh rubber, or wait and then take advantage of the fresh rubber when everyone else is struggling.
I'm just happy that I was able to roughly divide 134 by 3 so I could figure out that number, and hopefully these drivers aren't trying to do that math on the fly and have some sort of a strategy coming into this one. Look at this replay, a bobble by Dylan Coyle there, and that's a bit of a touch with Eric de Blasio, the 11 car into the outside wall. That looks like it was off of 4. Dylan, it's loose?
I've actually been able to save it from being that loose. That was one of the only times I got loose, and unfortunately it was down the inside. And I apologize to Eric. Did not mean for that to happen whatsoever. He messaged me after the fact. But
I'm sure it wasn't a friendly message.
Yeah, he thinks I tried to do that, I think. Did not mean to do that. Really unfortunate. I feel really bad about that.
So that would explain why de Blasio has gone to the garage. I don't know what the issue was with Shane Parrish. Let's see. Well, there it is. Very similar incident, and I think that was the 19 who pushed up and caught him. So Eric Stanford up in front of him, so that would explain. And tip of the hat to our producer Hugo Louis downstairs for finding those clips. Eric de Blasio and Shane Parrish out of this race from very similar instances of getting some contact and damage, both times happening down at this end of the racetrack in turns number 3 and 4. Not a great start, I would say, for the 19 of Eric Stanford. I mentioned he's making his 2021 debut tonight, currently running in 40th position. So is Steve Durham, making his first start of 2021. He's scored in 34th at the moment. The battle we're watching, though, 7th on up. You're on board with Agadil Phillip, and the side-by-side duo is Kyle Trudell and Liam Sheen.
Yeah, Trudell I don't think has saved as much as these other top 5 cars have, and maybe he's starting to fall a little bit, although Sheen's not blowing him out of the water on the bottom side either. You can even see this 94 who caught both of them side by side. He's even struggling. Oh,
and a spin and a caution.
That's
so
a
just
big
on
accident.
the cusp of what was
no!
That was Eric Stanford, who we just talked about, was running in 40th at his debut, well behind the incident. And that is not how you want things to go. A mess in turn number 4 in more than one sense of the word. Here's a second look at some 3 wide gone awry. Mara pushes up. Kamer and the 5 get together into the outside wall. And that got out of control quick. And then here's Stanford. Wasn't flying through it, Jonathan, but I think wasn't expecting this.
No, I think he was expecting the 8 to go all the way up, and then he kind of slowed down mid straightaway. Normally, we don't really have complaints about unsafe rejoins on ovals, but I believe that would be maybe an investigation of an unsafe rejoin on that one. And the 5 and the 8 just got stuck together. That was a hard impact for the 8.
Yeah, Rhett McBride on the outside there, kind of the innocent victim, as it was Matthew Mara and Kyle Kamer side by side, and yeah, tough to tell.
Involved. I think that's the
they were squeezed so tight. The 23 definitely came up, but when you're that close, I don't know if they were just kind of stuck on each other into the corner, or to what degree it was Mara push it up, if it was on his own or not.
Yeah, and here's the 10 machine. You mentioned both new starters, and both unfortunately caught up in this accident.
A little bit less reaction time for Durham. He probably got the worst out of all of that.
Oh yeah, the back end's torn up, the front end's destroyed. And this is where I actually kind of question why the 11 and the 89 kind of just called it quits, because you can get repairs and maybe get a few points off, but we look at the race down pit road and it's a scramble to the line.
Everybody in agreement, basically, that the strategy call is 4 tires. It was no more than a dozen laps away from a scheduled pit stop anyway, so no shocks there. And the race off of the pit lane won by Daniel Eberhardt. Danson dropped a few, I believe, off the pit road. He was second at the time of the incident, and Matthew Barra, by the way, will claim responsibility for the yellow, so he'll get an end of the longest line penalty. But Daniel Eberhardt's going to get a buffer because Nieto, Trudell, Farinaj, and Sheen all beat Danson off of pit road. And speaking of Andrew Farinaj, haven't talked much about the 88 yet tonight, but could this be his break into the top 5 as he's up to 4th for the moment? I say could it, because he is coming to pit road? No, he's just enjoying it on the apron. He had to be worried there when he dropped down. Didn't know if he missed some sort of service. But yeah, Farinaj making a play to the top 5 was relatively absent in that first run.
He was quietly running like 4th and 5th, like just minding his own business. I think he's just kind of riding it out, seeing what the track is doing, seeing what everything is changing. And, you know, I think Danson falling back, he had a 16.1 second stop. So I'm wondering if he just slid through the box a little bit, or if maybe there was like a slight repair time that he wanted to take. Aero is really important at a track like this, and I think Farinaj is on the bottom. He's saving gas because you know that any less time you can spend on pit road, the better.
Well, let's get an update, Dylan, with you. I mean, we saw the incident with the 11. Other than that, I mean, you're in the green. You're up a few spots. What was learned in that first run?
I'm feeling good right now. I actually was a bit upset that yellow came out when it did, because I felt like I could pick up a few more spots on that run without it being so chaotic and hectic. Tires were definitely worn. I was losing maybe half a tenth off my qualifying time, so not terribly much, or maybe a second and a half, I forget exactly what I was getting. But it was, for all intents and purposes, it was fine. I'm very happy with the 4 tires, by the way, because thank you. It doesn't.
You're welcome.
Helps me. Thank you so much. Because I'd rather have fresh tires instead of dealing with really slow tires, really old tires, I guess you could say. But I'm happy with this. Still feeling awful for Eric. I feel bad about that, but got to move on. That's all you can do.
Well, he's not the only one out of this one. Jonathan, you had alluded to it. Drivers in that most recent incident, Eric Stanford, his night is done. Durham and Kamer are damaged on pit road, and Dominic Howe, with a bit of perseverance, gets a lap back as the lucky dog, so he'll go from 2 laps down to 1 lap down, and may just get back into this race as the lights go out on top of the pace car. Daniel Eberhardt in control, opting to take the inside of the front row.
Yeah, the worry for me now is that the 2 and the 7 were both fast on fresh rubber. I don't know if that 90 feels comfortable wasting his tires yet, or if he wants to race it out right away. But it's going to be interesting to see like how this top 6 kind of unfold early on right here.
The restart will come. 93 laps to go. If it were to go green, you only need 1 stop to get to the end. Not a racetrack that has historically seen a bunch of yellows, but with this package, anytime you group up 40-some-odd cars, there is a risk for chaos. We got to wait with a few on that first one, see how aggressive these drivers will be on the first restart of the night. Pace car down and in once it's off of the racing surface. Daniel Eberhardt can restart this race when he wants to. Danson, though, your pole sitter, got swallowed up on lap 1. Let's see how the Donnie car handles this one. Green flag in the air.
I don't think Eberhard could have timed that restart any better. That was like almost perfect timing to retain the lead.
Got to walk the line between having a good restart but not having too good, and there it goes. Huge slide in turn 2. And after nailing the restart, Eberhardt drops like a rock to 5th, just like that, maybe more. De Blasio moves Sheen out of the way to his inside. That 90 car lucky, I think, to still be in this one. That car went up the hill in a hurry.
I like how I say something good, then all of a sudden something bad happens. It's like the commentator's curses with me or something.
Imagine that. But yeah, he timed it well, and now it's Sam Nieto who's loose. He is all kinds of out of shape, so dancing at Eberhardt to the inside. Trudell a little trepidatious to the bottom. The 94 of Agnew Phillip was trying to encourage him, almost push him through in turn number 2, and in the end, that little bit of cautiousness means Trudell doesn't gain anything. So dancing to 2nd, Eberhardt to 3rd, to the inside, and then back up top. That 90 car not fazed by that incident a few laps ago. He's up and on the wheel, and you're on board with him as dancing around Farinage for the race lead.
How many lead changes have we had so far?
How many have we had since the green flag came out 5 laps ago? Dancing and Farinage, 2 drivers, top split in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series race here at Vegas in the trucks just a week ago.
Yeah, so we have some of the best going at it. It's just like a concern that the record of 24 lead changes is going to be broken rather quickly.
Look at that move there by the 2 car. That's Nieto trying to keep Agnew Phillip at bay. A bit of a block between 6th and 7th spot. De Blasio up top, a little bit loose. I mean, for this kind of package, you would be concerned about a lot of aero push. I'm sure it's tight out there, but these cars are twitchy, and I think that's what keeps it exciting. I think that's what gives some control into the drivers as opposed to just holding it down and turning to the left. And I think that's why yesterday's race was so good in the NASCAR Cup Series, is when it's warm and they're a little bit loose, these drivers can wheel it, and when you give them that opportunity, they put on a show like this. Dancing breaks away. They're side by side for 2nd on back.
Yeah, they know this is their best opportunity to gain spots too, and everyone's so close together, so they want to be aggressive. And De Blasio almost got into the back of that nicely black and gold painted 88, but thankfully did not make any contact.
On board with Kyle Trudell, he's in the Hornet's nest. Let's ride with him. Three wide now into turn number 1. It's Trudell on the inside. They're going to touch. Miller saves it once, not twice. Into De Blasio. They're into the outside wall. The field will scatter. Nobody spins. This race stays green.
You knew that was going badly in the front stretch. You saw like a little bit of a debris pop up on the side of Kyle Trudell, and I'm like, I'm wondering how that got there. And then all of a sudden the chaos continues, but now 2 damaged race cars are heading back into the thick of things in the mid-pack.
Oh, they're not done yet. I mean, here comes Jaron Weinmaster to the inside. They're going to go 3 wide once more. Behind them, David Washington in the middle of some 3 wide. Just look at this group and hold your breath. 4 wide to turn 3.
Yeah, I don't know if some of them even know that there's 2 damaged race cars ahead of them. Like, they've been so busy fighting amongst themselves. Hold on to it, Jeremy.
Way up the road, Stowe Price in the 22 is going to get squeezed out a little bit. The eject button on the bottom for the number 24 of Grant Davis, and Don Casto picking up spots at all of this, but Miller really hurting right now, stacking up that outside. He has fallen to 18th, and now probably worse, down to 21st as Washington gets on by. That was a good bit of damage to both the right-hand side and the back of that race car, and they're 3 wide behind him. That's not going to compute, so Fredericks has to lift, and now it's Coyle in the middle.
They're trying to bob and weave around this slower car, and thankfully I think the other one ahead, the 21, has recovered a little bit, but he's still a little off the pace. Again, I mentioned the aero is so important here. Having that damage on there is going to really hurt the 27. He needs a yellow.
Here's the second look. The 7 pushes up. The 27 comes up a little bit to avoid, and there was the one save, and he just ran out of room to run it up the hill. Nowhere for de Blasio to go. He got out of the gas, just couldn't allow the 27 to clear in time. And as a result, Adam de Blasio's in 23rd position. Jeremy Miller's in 32nd, and they are both continuing to drop. Mara, Cruz, the other Mara now around Miller. What a disastrous turn of events after Miller started this race in 6th.
Waiting for de Blasio, he also started well up in that top 5, but he's not done yet. He's got a lap car Dominic Howe trying to recover, and there's a few mid-pack drivers that really want to get inside the top 20 behind him. It's just a rough time, and I don't know what the damage is on Trudell, because he got hit on the side, I think, on the front stretch too. We were riding on board, and I saw something pop up, but the 7 seems okay. He's still in 5th place.
He's doing all right. He maintains. He was the lucky one out of all of that, and it has spread things out just a little bit. The mid-pack is obviously where it is the most crazy. There is some fighting up front for the race lead. Lap traffic on the horizon. They're going to have to go 3 wide to get around the 8 machine to Kamer, who drops a 4th lap down, but Danson on the bottom. Farinaj on the outside, and Danson clipped that transition from the banking to pit road. It's very close there on the white line in 4, and you could see that 05 snap loose just for a moment. He had to get out of the gas, and that allowed Farinaj to not only win the battle for the race lead, but also Eberhardt to get 2nd, and Nieto to challenge for 3rd. That's where they're side by side. Meanwhile, someone's throwing blocks. It's Agnel Phillip shutting the door on Marius Leszczynski down the back.
That was a huge door slam. We heard that, all the way from here, and I'm in virtual Philadelphia, and virtual Las Vegas is so far away. That 94 is aggressive at the moment.
And now the 03 push it up. The 44 of Lariah going to squeeze, and you can tell that kind of slight adjustment to the right hurt him because he was loose at it too, but he kept his foot in it, made the spot, got to the bottom. Lap traffic with all those hurt race cars is going to be a big factor now throughout this run. There's going to be constantly slower cars in the way of your leaders. They've been able to get away with it thus far, but something tells me they may not be as fortunate all night long. Closing in on halfway in this SimSeats 200. It's been a wild one so far.
Yeah, that move Farinaj took to get the lead reminded me of what happened at Michigan in the Winter Series. I don't know if you remember all that long ago, where Danson dove down the inside of the 88 when there was a lap car on the outside when the 88 was trying to get to pit road, and Danson took the lead and never looked back. And now this time, well, the 88 pins him down to the inside when there's a lap car on the outside. The 05 just said nowhere to go.
And maybe a moment just to breathe for everybody to help, kind of catch their breath and reset in this one. Eberhardt was one of, if not the best cars, second half of that opening run. Remember, he wasn't that aggressive early, came up and caught Danson late. Well, now he is hounding Farinaj, some 22 laps since they were on pit road. Did they touch that time into turn number 1? Farinaj looked like he bobbled like they may have. I think they came awfully close, but didn't, and second half of the run, obviously, is where Eberhardt feels like it's his opportunity to put the heat on him.
Yeah, just a friendly bump. These two are friends. They've battled with each other before. They only got 13 wins of all of last season combined. No big deal.
A lot of apron to use there. He'll use that to get to the bumper of Farinaj, looking to the inside. Farinaj not blocking like we saw Agnel Phillip do on the backstretch, but he kind of parked it into turn one there where he kind of took a little bit of both lines to make it difficult for Eberhardt there, but now that the Nani's got alongside him, he's got a real good look. If Farinaj can keep it wound up, he'll get the speed off of 4, so the Nani has to try it again into turn number 1, maybe slide up in front of the 88 as they battle for the lead. Here comes Sam Nieto in third.
I think that might just be that 88's line. Like, that middle line is the best defensive line, because going on the bottom, if you drift up the track, you're going to run out of room, and like Eberhardt has to do, he has to get out of it right here. But if you try and go high, you have the speed, but you're not going to have the room to clear him. So Eberhardt's is kind of stuck right now, trying to find a way around the 88.
So he can't make it happen. Eberhardt tucks in line second. Nieto is third. Reset. Try it again. Top 3 breakaway with Danson lurking about half a second behind in the number 4 spot. And you're right, Farinaj not taking that middle line, I think, solely to block, but that's the line that works for him and also does a pretty good job of being a good defensive position. You can see it's kind of a top 5 breakaway or so. Agnell Phillip not really in touch with these guys. Danson a couple of car lengths back, as I mentioned, but your top 5 have a good advantage over 6th on the back where things are a little bit more chaotic. Farinaj doesn't want to be working the tires that hard by going down to the apron on the front straightaway. Eberhardt doesn't mind. He uses it again to get a nose on the inside. But Farinaj looking pretty comfortable there, middle of the racetrack.
Yeah, that just seems to be his line. He just really, really smooth. And I mentioned, like, the only way you're going to get around a guy really is if he makes an error. And that 88 has not made an error running that midline or even taking that late apex. You can see he's very smooth out of this corner with a 90 who's a little bit loose. That's just Andrew's line. He's running a really, really good racing line right here.
Some really great and intense racing here, guys, in the midfield. And we're right at that midway mark, and just awesome racing. I'm surprised.
Still trending the right direction in 23rd?
Yes, and looking for more.
We're on board with Matthew Mara in 29th, so you're about a second and a half up the road from him. Mara up 6 spots from the get-go in this one, looking at a side-by-side battle between Brian Chambliss and lapped car on the outside of the racetrack. No, William Schmidt, sorry. Side-by-side, 25th and 26th spot, and side-by-side again for the lead. Eberhardt to the inside on Farinaj. Let's see, maybe 4th time's the charm?
Thinking Sam Nieto must have had a big error coming out of 2 because Danson just went to 3rd and Nieto's nowhere to be seen around these 2.
He drops way back. Nieto's last lap time at 32.2, so 0.6 of a second slower. He had a huge bobble in the center of 1 and 2. That's what it was. And up front, Farinaj just so strong, working both lanes. That time by, though, 67 down, 67 to go as we battle for the race lead. Let's talk through our SimSeats midway race break. So Andrew Farinaj, quiet for the opening run of this race, has been in a bloody knuckle battle for the lead since the race start. Sometimes with Danson, recently with Eberhardt. Eberhardt rides in second after leading several laps. And this is your side-by-side duo for the race lead. Matt Danson behind, runs in 3rd spot at the moment. Just a little bit off, as you mentioned, Sam Nieto with the bobble, who falls down to 4th spot. Agnell Phillip, therefore, in 5th spot, with Mariusz Leszczynski scored in P6. Michael Araya in 7th position. Kyle Trudell is 8th. Brandon Bowie rides in 9th position. And Nick Silver right now is 10th.
Yeah, Liam Sheen was up towards this mix right now in 11th. Joseph Tice working his way from the back of the grid all the way to 12th. Good run for him. Chris Rabel in 13th. Bradley Burke in 14th. Winemaster in 15th. Thomas George, a quiet race so far, in 16th. Stowe Price Jr. in 17th. Sean Casto in 18th. Joe Yakes, a quiet race from him, but is in 19th. And Trevor Trigo quietly as well in P20.
Continuing on down through the running order, 21st is Grant Davis, Dave Washington, Michael Kaczynski, 22nd and 23rd in battle with our own Dylan Coyle, 24th, and Dane Cruz in 25th. Ross Cato rides 26th at the moment. William Schmidt is 27th with Brian Chambliss, Matthew Mara, and Anthony Fredericks, the top 30.
Nick Marr in 31st at the moment. Sean Kalist all the way back in 32nd. James Ross in 33rd. Tom Morano in 34th. Adam de Blasio got damaged from a contact with Jeremy Miller. They're running right now 35th and 36th. And then Dominic Howe, we don't know if it was a connection issue or a contact issue, but he went one lap down. He's riding one lap down in 37th. Rick McBride got caught up in that caution with Kyle Kamer. They're 38th and 39th, and Steve Durham is out of this race.
Well, that is a look through your top 40. Only you mentioned the likes of Stanford, de Blasio, Parrish towards 43rd. Out of this one, at a look top to bottom at your SimSeats midway race break. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality, made-in-the-USA driving simulators, including motion systems, complete turnkey iRacing packages, and custom fabrication. Their customer base includes all racers from amateur to the pro ranks, and everyone on the SimSeats team is a weekend racer too. Their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Join SimSeats for the thrill of racing at any time, on any day, in any car, and on any track. Visit sim-seats.com to learn more. And when you talk about the thrill of racing, a thrilling battle up front for the race lead for a moment. Farinaj stakes his claim as the control car, and you can see the bobble by Nieto a few laps ago. Jonathan, this is why he lost the spot to Dance. A nifty piece of driving, a good save, but yeah, that'll cost you about a second.
Yeah, it looks cool on camera.
They made a highlight reel, get some TV time. There you go. Obviously not the design, and could have been worse. Nieto only falls one spot down to position number 4. I did want to talk about Brandon Bowie for a moment, if we could. The number 34 rides in 8th at the moment. Of course, Brandon Bowie has had quite a start to 2021, riding right now in the number 8 spot. Your race winner from a week ago at Homestead, with a little bit of a different paint scheme on board that car tonight. Of course, he's got the Circle B die-cast colors as well, but he's also running a bit of a special scheme tonight to promote diversity and inclusion. He's got Noah Cornelius's podcast on the hood, the Noah Talks NASCAR podcast on the hood of that number 34 Toyota. So just wanted to give them a shout out, and of course our friends at Circle B Diecast and the entire team at Keeping It Real, because of course they've got the promo code you can use for Circle B to get some free shipping. And I think Josh Berry's got an iRacing diecast coming out here this year, so I think I'll be utilizing that code later tonight to get my pre-order in to keep the iRacing diecast collection alive as well. So just wanted to give a shout out to Brandon in that special paint scheme tonight, up a few spots in position number 8. Tonight's actually been a night quite a bit, Jonathan, of movers. You got Phillip, you got Leszczynski, Lariah, Bowie, Silver, all these guys in the back half of the top 10 that started outside of the top 10, but you can look at the plus minus there, up 7, up 8, up 4, up 5, up 8. Even Joseph Tice up 31 positions from 41st to 11th spot. There's a lot of drivers making some headway.
Yeah, remember we were about like an hour and a half ago when we were talking about Tice maybe not making the show? Well, he's made the show, and he's putting on a show. He's in P10, and good for him. And I want to mention Bowie and Silver as well, because they have been running some good races. It seems like these guys that qualified in the end of that top 10 just have not been able to maintain some of that speed. You can see Liam Sheen here has fallen outside of it. Same with Bradley Burke. They both qualified inside the top 10, but have just been kind of sliding backwards. I'm sorry, only Liam Sheen as he gets a little loose. Good save there.
I really hope that Matt Danson finishes top 3 in this race so we can talk to him about that qualifying that you talked about, because maybe that goes to show you don't need group qualifying for qualifying to be exciting. That was a nail-biter in the knockout queue to start this race. 55 to go. This time by, though, closing in within, I'd say, 10 laps of the number. To come down pit road, we have not seen green flag pit service tonight. The yellow flag came just before that window opened on the opening run of this race. Since then, nothing else has really changed much, only the one yellow in the constant battle for the race lead. I think the obvious choices, and again, who knows what happens when you have a championship format like this, Jonathan, but I think if we're in Vegas and you want to put some money down on some championship 4 names, the easy answers are Farinaj, Eberhardt, Danson, +1. Problem is, I'd probably pick about 7 names that don't fit in the 4, right? You got somebody like a Bowie, Michael Laraya still without a win, 7th here tonight. Jeremy Miller has had flashes of brilliance. He's going to be in the playoffs with the Daytona win. There's just too many names to talk about that don't all fit in a championship 4, and that's why we run the races instead of just advancing right to it, right? I think this is going to be, we say it every year, don't want to sound like a broken record, but man, is this going to be a very convincing championship battle all season long. Could a Trudell, could a Kamer get into the mix as well? I mean, so many storylines to follow over the course of the season, but I think right now, I wouldn't be shocked if some drivers start to push, try to get 1 or 2 more spots, because I think that pit stop bank is about to open. 52 laps to go this time by. It's been 44 since they pitted, so if you want to split the difference, my number would be in 5 laps.
Yeah, and the tricky part is you can see how quickly you get off the banking to pit road, and we saw it in the real-life race yesterday, and we've seen it in eNASCAR as well, that it's a quick transition, and you really have to be on the money to make sure you don't make a mistake. And guys like riding on board with Thomas George here, he's got 4 cars in front of him, he's got some cars behind him. Like, he's got to really time out when he goes to pit road and communicate that really, really well. It's going to get dicey, I think, for the next few laps.
Got a couple of 5-car stores in front of the field. I mentioned that Rhett signed off on giving the 5 to Joseph Tice. That was longtime Joseph Tice's number, but has not been available since he came and raced here Monday nights in the SimSeats RealSimRacing Cup Series. But I think maybe wanting one more trip around was Rhett there, because he kept the 5 on it tonight. So we got 2 of them in the field. Eberhardt has tried so many times to make the bottom work. He'll try the inside again, and they are on each other's door in turn 4. Again, though, Farinaj continues to answer the call.
No, you see the SimRacer sponsor on that 88 machine. We should put, some sort of romantic movie on the 90 machine, because these two can't leave each other.
They hit the fence that time. The sparks fly as Eberhardt cleared Farinaj, put the slide job on him, nearly put it into the fence. And I think Andrew Farinaj cut Daniel Eberhardt a break, because he got out of the throttle, or he would have driven straight through the 90 car. Was it Chase Elliott at the Vegas race who slid up or was that Homestead? Somebody, I think it might have been Homestead, where he slid up in front of the 11 of Hamlin and, just completely dropped, the speed on him and slid up in front. And Hamlin, I think, was the one who gave Chase Elliott a break there. And art imitating life, if you will. The sim imitating life is Daniel Eberhardt aggressive. He was tired of going to the inside, Jonathan, and it not working, and pushed the issue a little bit there. Farinaj cut him a break. Don't think he'll cut him a break if it's 5 to go, but maybe at 45 to go he feels like it wasn't worth it. Look how close.
I don't even think Farinaj got the wall. That's the most impressive part. I think only the 90 car scraped it just a little.
Just a touch.
Gotta put
I
that
don't think
somewhere.
they lost a ton of time either. I thought that both of them getting out of the gas was going to blow the door wide open for Matt Danson. We talked about Nieto's big slide. You saw a good look at that a couple of laps ago that caused him to fall from 3rd to 4th. Nothing's changed there. So Danson's still in 3rd, has closed a little bit, but not all the way. And we've got takers down pit road. I see Coyle, I see Mara, Casto, Bowie. Does this open the flood bank for the race leaders to come down pit road? Eberhardt says no. Farinaj, Danson, Nieto, Leschinski, your top 5 don't come to pit road yet. The fall off has been about a 1.5 seconds. Fresh tires to old. That's not a lot. It could always be worse. So maybe that buys this window a little bit of a wider window to come down.
I mean, the concern I have for these top 5, and even like Laraya and Silver and Tice, is that 34 came down. That 34 has been moving up throughout the field and showing good, consistent pace. So I would be a little bit worried of an over-under. It was a little bit of a far gap, though, so I think these top 4 are going to be safe. But when do these top 4 come down?
I think when you get one, you're going to get all of them. The question is, who wants to be the first in? In theory, Dan Nieto could come down from 4th and buy himself instantly a 1.5 seconds, and maybe leapfrog them all. As you see, Jared Winemaster is down on pit road. It's just kind of a game of chicken up front for the leaders. More cars continue to come in. Adam de Blasio down pit road. I got Dominic Howe in, Jeremy Miller in and out. Kyle Kamer also down and off the pit lane. So they're all coming. Just not, honestly, as tight as I thought they would. I thought it would have been, 3-lap window and done. But these leaders maybe not in a rush to dive down pit road. Also, you're always going to have those drivers who stay out on the second half trying to catch a yellow. But normally the leaders are some of the first to come in. Not this time.
I think for Eberhard, it makes sense for him to stay out because he's gaining time right now in the 88 and the 5. And there we go. There's Lariah, there's Silver, there's Tice. I think we're hitting that window where some of these top runners are coming down. Yeah, Eberhard's gaining time in the 88 and the 05, so it makes sense for him to stay out. Nieto's kind of gaining time on the 05 and the 88, so it makes sense for him to stay out. I think it's going to be Freenage or Danson that comes down and pulls the trigger.
Lariah, Silver, Ross, Tice all down pit road. There's Michael Lariah in the pit stall as he gets service, and Sam Nieto is in from fourth. He had just started to lose some time. I thought that it made the most sense. I said it a few laps ago, and Nieto is in. So does this force your top three drivers to respond? Eberhard is still gaining, as you mentioned, now 0.8 of a second over the battle for second between Andrew Freenage and Matt Danson. This time through 4. Eberhard stays. Freenage, Danson, they all stay. This could potentially be a big pickup for Nieto. Is it a race we need to move? I don't know, because he may cycle through as the net leader. Of course, that means that he'll be on the older tires late, but in this instance, I like the call.
The other thing is how much fuel these guys have left. They've been out there 55 laps. Like, they're going to be running on empty here shortly, boys.
You got, 4 laps left, and maybe, I don't know if they can go much further than 60.
I think 62, I think, is the most I've ever seen at a Vegas race. I think even that's being a bit generous. That must have been great fuel saving, but they stay out again. Now, the real key is to watch the 44's pace. What is his last lap time going to be? His first full lap back on the track. Once we see that number, then we get an idea of how fast that 2 car is going to be as well.
Well, I'm always pretty envious and in awe when, you watch some of the best fuel save. Even harder when you're not off the gas much at all to fuel save at the same time. Daniel Eberhard is in from the race lead, a money pit road entry to pit road speed of 50 miles an hour, and now it is the Freenage and Danson duo that cycle to 1 and 2.
Yeah, now they have a problem. They're the 2 on older tires, and there goes Phillip right around them. That's the 14 as well, trying to get around them, and the 03 Lashinsky trying to get around them to get their laps back, and I think this might be a problem for them too, trying to hit pit road. Maybe the 88 can get it. He's going to be close if he tries.
Well, there's no shock that the call there for the 90 is going to be the 4 tires. I'm just going to wait till he gets off of pit road so we can kind of analyze the difference between he and who I think is going to end up being the kind of net leader of Sam Nieto when this all cycles through. He's currently behind Bowie in Eberhard, but Eberhard is still trying to blend up on track, and I just want to look at those intervals once he gets back out on pit lane. So hold that thought, and once he's back up, I'll have that number for you. But it looks like Freenage right slowing, and yeah, there you go. So as you watch all of this play through, Nieto is the second car behind Bowie, by the way. So Bowie, with the big undercut, kind of snuck past us. Bowie is the lead car of those who has pitted. He has currently scored in 13th, but I just still feel like it's going to be a battle between, Nieto, Eberhard, and these other guys. I don't know if Bowie is going to be able to maintain everything that he picked up. But Nieto's total time on pit road was 39.8 seconds. Eberhard was 39.6. So there is not a lot gained or lost there. Eberhard was very aggressive. That's why I wanted to look at the interval 0.2 better overall. That doesn't account for, of course, the time it takes to get up to speed, which is a factor as well. But Freenage and Danson still out, Jonathan. They're just burning what's going to be left when they get back out there. And they're going to be probably 10 seconds back once they pit. Now, again, yes, they will have the better tires late. And 35 to go was plenty of time still, but very surprised that they're still out there.
And I'm curious too, because we mentioned Brandon Bowie cycling up, being the net leader of this race. And, oh man, that 90 car just went right around the 2 machine like it was nobody's business.
Agnew Phillip, actually, I think, now double-checking my numbers, is the net leader. He pitted even earlier. So Phillip pitted 12 laps before Eberhardt did. That was 4 laps earlier than what Bowie had done. So that's how it stacks up. So Agnew Phillip, actually, if I'm reading the numbers correctly, your net leader on this strategy. That will be enough to go to the end. And there's Freenage in, and a little bit loosey-goosey that time as he was on that transition that I was worried about. That may have been close on a speeding penalty. I'm going to watch him in the box to see if he has to stay. If I was a betting man, I'd say he was good, but it was very tight.
You can tell from the lockup. I'm a little concerned, too, for that 88 car. He may have to come back down for a speeding penalty at some point.
Right side's on. Here's the second look, and that's that transition, and he is good. He's going to be in and out without penalties. So Andrew Freenage walking that line. Matt Danson in this time. So he waited 1 additional lap. There was no doubt that Danson was good. He came down pit road about 4 miles an hour under the pit road limit. So for somebody who wants to gamble with the line in qualifying down to the last second, did not want to gamble down to the last mile an hour. He was safe on his pit road entry. This is going to bring everybody else down pit road. Sheen, Mara, Washington, George, and this may put a button on it. Only waiting on Sean Kalist now to come to pit road, who is out and leading a lap. He's been out there for 64 laps. I'm guessing that's about the limit he is in this time. He can pocket a bonus point for leading a lap. Kalist is in, and that is it. So Agnew Phillip, who pitted earlier than anybody else did some 19 laps ago, came down, got his 4 tires, cycled through, is the race leader for the first time tonight. He's going to start to score some bonus points, and now we await to see, can he maintain a 2.4 second advantage over Daniel Eberhardt P2? Dominic Cow nearly wrecked in turn 2. He's going to be okay. 3.8 second advantage over Nieto, and even more so with the likes of Freenage and Danson, who are some 12 seconds off of the lead by having stayed out for so long. Here's a look at Kalist's entry.
Well, he's the second to last box, and unfortunately, I think he kind of forgot he was the second to last box and overslid it a little bit, so he has to put it in reverse and fix it right up.
Tough break. You learn to enter pit road way to the right? That's just how you can maximize the most speed. Not really compatible with those early pit stops or pit stalls, and that is pretty rough. For Sean, not what he wanted at all. He spends 1 minute and 2 seconds total on pit road. That's about 20 seconds longer than anybody else. So, that 20 seconds comes from him just trying to adjust and actually get it into the stall. So, Agnew Phillip, your race leader, but it's not going to last much more than a lap or 2, because ahead of this group in turn 2, here comes Daniel Eberhardt. There's a lapped car in between them, but Agnew Phillip leads for the moment. Eberhardt's going to come through on the inside, a little bit loose. He's got to be careful as he navigates Kaczynski here, but Daniel Eberhardt now will cycle to the race lead.
Yeah, this is where that call of waiting for the 88 and the 05, I kind of scratched my head a little bit, because you're one of the fastest competitors you're racing with came down here early, and that's a big slide from the 94.
Happy the grass isn't down there like it was once upon a time before the repave that got this racetrack up to 20 degrees of banking. That's what you call giving it all. Agnew Phillip not wanting to give up too much, caught the fence off of 2, and he's going to try to fight for a good result. Started 12th. I'm sure his objective is to maintain a top 10. But Daniel Eberhardt has a very good opportunity to win this race. Of course, it's not going to shock anybody. He was up front when Freenage and Danson were behind. I thought that the undercut for Sam Nieto honestly was going to do a lot better than it did, right? But Phillip led because he pitted earlier, right, Jonathan? We're not shocked that he came down first. That's why he cycled to the lead. I would have thought that maybe, Leszczynski would have got a look, Bowie would have got a look, Nieto, but Daniel Eberhardt pitted after all of them. So there is no faster cars in that group coming to get Eberhardt, right? He's already passed them through the cycle. He's solid. The only drivers with fresher tires than Eberhardt that are threats are Freenage at 8th and Danson in 10th. Frenage is some 7.8 seconds back. Danson is 9.1 seconds back. Those are the fastest cars on track. Fast enough to catch him? We will see with 26 laps to go, but Daniel Eberhardt, very impressive. I thought that, Nieto, Phillip, and Leszczynski, Bowie, those drivers would have had a bit more of a realistic look, but aside from Agnew Phillip leading about a half a dozen, Daniel Eberhardt took care of the rest on his march back to the lead lap. As you can see, those last pit stop laps, left-hand side of your screen. Of course, the higher the number, the more recently they were down on pit road, and therefore the better their tires are.
Yeah, I didn't think like 5 to 10 laps would make that much of a difference, but the way that the 90 machine just blew by Sam Nieto, I mean, that just might have been urgency as well. Like, he knows his fastest competitors are back in the pack, so if you put a huge gap on him now, it's better in the long run. It's going to take a while for Frenage and Danson even to get back up there. I'm going to be surprised, honestly, if it ends up being Frenage and Danson getting second and third. They got a whiles back to get to Sam Nieto.
Frenage now inside of 7 seconds. His last lap was a 30.788. It was a 31.0 for Eberhardt, so at 0.2 of a second per lap. And with 24 laps to go, doing my math, he would get about, did you hear me typing it?
I heard it.
Calculate it. That would be about 5 seconds. He could make up 5 seconds at this pace. He's more than 5 seconds behind. Now, last lap, instead of being only 0.2 better, he was 0.6 better. If he can keep that pace, he'll make up 14 seconds and beat him by like 7. So it's going to come down to how consistent can Frenage be when he gets in these battles, right? He's going to have to battle with Bowie for position. He just got him. So he's going to have to now get Leszczynski for position, Phillip for position, Nieto for position. The longer they go, the less that tire advantage will be. We are in store, if this can stay green, for an awfully nail-biting 22-lap run to the end of this race.
Also, keep in mind how aggressive these top 3 can be. Like, Nieto had a win almost in the bag last week at Homestead. I think we thought it's gotten taken away. He wants to stay up there. We saw Phillip getting aggressive 50 laps ago, walking down the inside. We know that 03 can also be aggressive, so this 88 has to really be careful and pick his battles and not to fall into the clutches of Danson either, because Danson's now past Bowie, and Danson's on the move.
All this talk of these drivers wanting an extra set of tires, and they have only used 2 tonight.
Is there a veto? Are you enacting a veto, possibly?
Well, just because they got their 2/3 vote doesn't mean that it's automatic. But I think that giving them 4 is fine, because we talked about, this is a half-length race. NASCAR did 400 miles here yesterday. We do 200. We talked about, trying to keep things even, and that's why we've bumped up the weather to move at 2 times speed. So 3 hours has passed in the sim since this race started, even though it's only been, about an hour and a half. So we talk about all those things. NASCAR sometimes has upwards of a dozen tires available.
Oh, no.
I don't think these guys need 6. And speaking of that tight battle through, that's Matt Danson trying to get by a roadblock of Agnew Phillip and Mariusz Leszczynski. That was almost bad off of 4. They're 3 wide now in 1, and Danson gives up a ton of time getting past those 2.
I think my heart stops. I saw that 03 in my head sliding in front of Danson, and Danson just ramming into the back of him. That was good driving from both of them. Not to ram into each other.
Frenage gave Eberhardt a break, and Danson cut those 2 drivers a break, but I'm surprised that Danson lost out to Frenage so much on that pit cycle, right? They're separated by about 1.2 seconds to each other. Probably comes down to the fact that Frenage was so aggressive on pit road on entry, right? Because actually, Frenage was longer on pit road than Danson. Frenage spent 40.7 seconds on pit road total, 15.2 in the box. Danson only spent 40 seconds flat total, 15.3 in the box. So Frenage was actually slower on pit road, but we talked about Frenage bordering on a speeding penalty, whereas Danson came in at about 5 miles an hour under. That 1.2 seconds difference between the 2, Jonathan, probably came exclusively on pit road entry.
And also that extra lap outside, you're going to get a look right here. You can see the 03 just drifting, and Matt's got some really good guts if he keeps in it like that, and he stayed in it, so good on him for staying in it, and good on that 03 of Leszczynski. for saving it. He's driving a really good race in the top 10 for him. Good for the
Danson
Extreme
timed
Motorsports
that
driver.
real
now,
well as well. I just wanted to mention because he lifted a little bit, but he didn't lift out to let those guys go, right? Just enough to not plow through them, and then immediately still went to the inside 3 wide. So there is a line where even when Matt Danson's going to cut you a break, doesn't mean he's going to cut you too much of one.
Oh yeah, no, he didn't want to come on a break. Now, speaking of not cutting a break, I don't think this 2 car is going to cut anybody a break trying to battle for second here.
Fridaj's going to go to the inside. This is 4.5 seconds off of the race lead. And Fridaj will get it on the bottom, so now Fridaj up to second. Ample lap traffic, though, between he and Daniel Eberhardt. There's about 5 cars in between them. Some of them are off pace as you go on board with the 88 machine. So I don't think there'll be that much of a factor. But with 15 laps to go, Fridaj needs to start going if he wants to get Eberhardt in time. I don't think it happens if this race stays green. And to your point, big tip of the cap to Mariusz Leszczynski. I wanted to double up on that. Who's having a great night right now in P5.
Yeah, it's been a good solid night. He's been up there in the top 10, I think, most of the day. So a really good run from the Extreme Motorsports 03, and good on the strategy as well because he's gotten ahead of Philip and Bowie, and he's kind of in no man's land. But now, here's the problem for Fridaj. He's lost his tire advantage, and same with Danson. Like, they've effectively lost it. They're running almost the same lap times now as Eberhardt.
Yeah, that advantage no longer there. Danson a little bit better, but of the 3, Eberhardt, Fridaj, and Danson, Fridaj was the slowest. He is not going to get there. He would need about 0.3 per lap right now if he wants to get to Eberhardt, and Eberhardt's kind of better than him, depending on which lap. They're kind of trading lap times back and forth. Danson may have an opportunity to chase down Fridaj for second. We talked about Fridaj aggressive on the pit road entry and coming in earlier, as you pointed out as well, to aid him from going side by side with Danson to about a second and change ahead of him. Since that point, though, Danson has kind of reeled him in, and this race may come down to a battle between second and third instead of the front of the field, as Daniel Eberhardt looks to become the 6th different race winner this year in 6 races, and the 3rd different race winner in the 3 points races thus far on 2021.
Yeah, well, I'm betting he's asking the field, did you miss me when he was not in Miami last week? But it was I think it was just a brilliant strategy call because he got out almost in the perfect time, got ahead of those guys that already, made that gamble of pitting early, and then dropped his 2 fastest competitors. That's why I was just scratching my head so much. The 88 and the 05, I think they just ran out of time on those new tires.
He kind of was right in the middle, right? Didn't go as early as, the likes of Agnew. Philip, he pitted 11 laps later than the first car did. That's a lot of patience, right? To not rush to pit road. At the same time, ended up pitting about 6, 7, 8 laps, depending on who you're talking about specifically, earlier than the last cars did. So right in the middle, kind of split the difference. He was up front to begin with, which certainly helps, right? He wasn't one of those drivers who needed to come down and pit earlier to make up time. He already had the time, he had the track position, and he had the speed, and just didn't really need to reinvent the wheel. And he is in control of this race. Should it stay green? 10 laps to go. That time by Danson within 4 car lengths of Fridaj for second. Who would have thought? And again, yes, I know the clash. I know the duels aren't points races, but for the sake of the stat, I'm counting them for now. Going to throw our 6th checkered flag of the year here in 9 laps. Who would have thought, if this maintains, Jonathan, that we could have 6 different race winners, none of which being Andrew Fridaj or Matt Danson?
It's almost a bit head-scratching, and I think the more frustrating thing, for Fridaj is that he's gotten close. He was up there at Miami, he got second at Daytona, and it might be a 2nd or a 3rd place here tonight, and it's a good points day. And for the 88, I don't think he'll have a problem making the playoffs, even if he doesn't get a win. But not having a win at this point in time is a little, frustrating. And for Danson, obviously missing Daytona hurts, and Miami didn't really go, I think, as planned for the 05. So this is a good points day, and just a good rebound day, at least for him. I don't think he's looking for the win, but just a nice day overall.
And on board with Matt, you talk about that missed start. Not going to be that bad. 20th in points. He's still going to get 10 bonus points for missing that race. So that'll update with the next points update because he attempted to but failed to qualify through the duel. But, I mean, yeah, Matt Danson, not somebody who wants to be on the back foot. And I think it's almost a statistical improbability or an impossibility, maybe, that Ferdinand and Danson could possibly go this whole regular season without a race win. Shocking enough that it happens for 3 weeks. I don't know what I would do if they went all 20. So I don't think these drivers are worried that much about points. They're going to get a win. I'd put a lot of money on that. But certainly taking note of the likes of Miller, Bowie, and no shock in those names, but definitely no shock, Jonathan, in the fact that Daniel Eberhardt has been good tonight.
Oh, there's a big crash.
Agnel Phillip. Heavy damage on the back straightaway. An incident between he and Brandon Bowie for 6th and 7th spot.
Gets into the wall, nowhere to go.
And no caution, both those cars down below the apron, so the sim doesn't trigger a yellow, less than 3 cars, so race control's not going to step in. And that's a pretty cruddy way for both of those drivers' nights to end. After that was a great showing for both of them.
Yeah, and those are drivers that, I mentioned the 88 and the 05 having good points day. Those are drivers that would love a good points day because
and had it.
Get into the playoffs off a win. They might get 1 or 2 here or there, but they really need those points. But good news for some others, this promotes Chris Rabel and Aaron Weinmaster to the top 10. So I guess good running for Chris Rabel, who started outside the top 20. And same for Aaron Weinmaster.
Yeah, Tice just ahead, started 41st, is 8th position. You talk about Rabel, started 20th, is up to 9th. Jaron Weinmaster, 25th to 10th, a little bit further back. Brian Chambliss, 33rd to 12th. Thomas George, 27th to 13th. There are drivers taking advantage of those kinds of mistakes. I'm just pretty shocked that those two drivers would make that kind of a mistake. Both some of the best cars all night long. Daniel Eberhardt still 4 seconds ahead. Ferdinand holding off Danson for the moment. It'll be 2 laps to go next time by.
You know what made it worse about also that 88 and the 05 staying out is that 90 was the strongest in the second half of the green flag run. And it showed when he was constantly pounding on that 88, and then once he got around, he was gone. He was able to get a second gap. So I think the 90 drove his butt off, but it was an iffy strategy call, I think, from the 88 and the 05.
When Daniel Eberhardt has been in this series for so long, and there's no shock, 8th in all-time starts, 2nd in all-time wins, of course, only to Andrew Ferdinand at the very top, one of the best win percentages in the series, and has had looks but has not been able to close on a championship in this series. So many times into the championship 4 as the white flag flies from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and tonight I think another statement that Daniel Eberhardt looking for redemption this year. Yes, it is a long road to Phoenix later this year, but Daniel Eberhardt showing that even with all the new names, the new champions, and Danson, that the Donnie car is still one of the best to do it on Monday nights. Final time at turn number 4, his first win of 2021. Eberhardt wins at Vegas.
Just a good, solid drive. That 90 was always in the mix all night. Got the strategy call right. Saved his tires right. Was just good throughout the whole run. It is a really good and deserving win, I think, for Daniel Eberhardt.
In a very shocking, I think, second half of the top 10, there are a lot of drivers who I think may have been worried coming into this race. You talked about how Vegas is comparable to a lot of the intermediates, somewhat to Charlotte. Charlotte and Texas and Atlanta kind of more so tied with each other, but the likes of Kansas, Kentucky, and whatnot, and with this kind of racing to make it up the bulk of the schedule, if you will, that you got to be good on them. Thought maybe the top guys would dominate. Well, the top guy wins it. but there's a lot of drivers real happy to be walking out of Las Vegas. Daniel Eberhardt, though, celebrating on the front straightaway. He burns it down. Career win number 20 in the SimSeats RealSimRacing Cup Series, his first of the year, and he becomes the third driver to lock into the playoffs. You might just celebrate all night. So let's take a look at our SimSeats full race results tonight from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Final margin of victory, 3.6 seconds. Atop Andrew Friedage, who hangs on to second. Matt Danson, who comes home in third. We'll talk with all of them in just a few moments. With Sam Nieto and Marius Leszczynski rounding out your top five. Michael Araya, Nick Silver, Joseph Tice, Chris Rabel, and Yaron Weinmaster, the top 10.
Looking further down, Sean Castro, really good finish for the 52 in 11th. Brian Chambliss in 12th. Thomas George in 13th. Dane Cruz in 14th. Grant Davis, he started towards the front and ended up fading way back. Was able to recover for 15th. Bradley Burke in 16th. Trevor Trigo in 17th. Stowe Price Jr. in 18th. Liam Sheen, the first Toyotas seem to be further down the order, all the way down in 19th. David Washington, we kind of expected him, I think, in the top 10. He's in P20.
Kind of a quiet night. Ross Cato, special shout out, by the way, who gets the fastest lap of the race late in this one with a 31.60 final car on the lead lap. Rest of the drivers lost the lap just through the long green flag cycle. Anthony Fredericks, William Schmidt, Nick Mara, Joey Yates, the top 25, with Brandon Bowie, Dylan Coyle, James Ross, Kyle Trudell, and Sean Kalis, the top 30.
Matthew Mara finishes 31st. Adam de Blasio had some damage after getting involved with Jeremy Miller. He finishes 32nd. Dominic Howe was down a few laps early, able to recover a little bit to get to 33rd. Tom Morano in 34th. Michael Kaczynski in 35th. Jeremy Miller, again, he had damage after tangling with Adam de Blasio, down in 36th. Agnel Phillip, heavy contact on the last lap, down in 37th. Kyle Kamer was involved in that big crash towards the end. Kyle Kamer and Rick McBride, as well as Steve Durham, all involved in that first caution to round up the top 40.
And then at the back, you got Stanford, de Blasio, and Parrish. That's a look top to bottom at your SimSeats full race results. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality, made-in-the-USA driving simulators, including motion systems, complete turnkey iRacing packages, and custom fabrication. Their customer base includes all racers from the amateur to the pro ranks, and everyone on the SimSeats team is a weekend racer too. Their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Join SimSeats for the thrill of racing at any time, on any day, in any car, and on any track, virtually at simseats.com for more information. Well, let's go down to SimSeats Victory Lane here for the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and let's talk with the driver of the number 90 machine. Your race winner tonight in the SimSeats 200 is Daniel Eberhardt. It's his first of 2021. Daniel, congratulations on the win. We'll talk about what it means in just a moment as you look to fight for that illustrious SimSeats Cup Series title. Something that you've been so close to so many times, but coming out swinging to start this season. To get a race win before Andrew and Matt, I know that's got to feel pretty good.
Heck yeah, Evan. Man, I don't know what it is about the car. You hate for it to be this, slow on speed. I mean, it puts on a great show at the beginning of runs and, and everything like that. It's really tight quarter racing, but I just have a knack for it. I've learned to, don't be so harsh about the car and just enjoy it. And I really feel blessed to be in this situation this early. So I'm going to see what we got. The SK Sim Racing Mustang was on rails all night, and I just can't believe it.
You start up front, you get a lap let early, and then it almost looked like to us like the car was at its best later in the run, because early in that race, you led a lap, immediately dropped back when they went 3 wide, and then late in the run, showed up again. Same thing after the one and only restart tonight. 20 laps into the run, showed up front, and then, of course, trying to time things through that green flag pit cycle at the end to beat out guys like Andrew and Matt, who were within a second of you when they pitted, but end up finishing nearly 4 seconds behind you. I mean, just tell us about trying to figure out that strategy and obviously playing it to perfection to get the win here.
Yeah, I didn't know really what to do. I mean, I was trying to stretch it, but then I seen Agnell was coming, and he got about a second back, and I'm like, I got to pit. I'm not losing this to, a dumb mistake by stretching it this far. But luckily it worked out, and about 25 laps into a run, everybody kind of evens out, especially running that outside in 1 and 2. I don't know why they were running that far up. I guess nobody really ran anything. I ran NIS once this week, and the first run I did that and ran the outside, and it just seemed like you could save better tires if you wouldn't go up there and just run the bottom and then let it float up on exit. So yeah, I think that was the key thing tonight. I'm ready for next week if we could just bring it on right now.
Get ready to go racing next week from Phoenix, because that will be a preview of where this championship is eventually decided in what feels like a millennium from now on November the 8th. But to have that win, to lock yourself into this postseason, as I mentioned, to fight again for a championship here on a Monday night, what does this do to the next 17 races? I know it's kind of redundant to say you're locked in and what you can fight for now is bonus points, but in a car that you already say, at least on these tracks, even though it's not your favorite kind of racing, you have a knack for, what do you do with this time before the round of 16 to better your chances, maybe not even for that round of 16, because I know that your eyes are set far further into the playoffs than that?
Just have fun with it, enjoy it. I mean, you brought sim seats on board, and give them as much airtime as I can, and just have fun, and kind of help, my buddies who race with us each and every week, and like Dave Washington, he's been on the downhill, and I want him to get on that uphill climb that he used to be when he was driving about 2 years ago. He's slacked off a little bit, and Shane Parrish and people like that. I just want to help them guys out who put the effort in each and every week that just get caught up in stuff that wasn't to their ordeal. But yeah, I mean, that's what I want to, and I want to get a couple more wins, but it's not about wins anymore. It's about trying to help others around me, and that's one thing I haven't focused on in the past, that I really want to help others get faster at this deal and this new package.
It was an exciting night tonight, I think, actually, for only one yellow. Pretty exciting racing, top to bottom, and you become the third different points race winner in 3 different races this year. 6 different winners in all 6 races, if you count the preseason stuff. Daniel, congratulations on the win. Thanks for racing with us on Monday nights, and we'll catch you next week at Phoenix.
Thank you, Evan.
The race winner tonight in the SimSeats 200 will shuffle down pit road. Jonathan, names we're going to be talking with a lot this year. Tonight, the runner-up is Andrew Farinaj, and you're with the driver of the 88.
Hey, Andrew, it's Jonathan. You have a copy?
I got you.
Well, Andrew, you were kind of close on strategy, and in the end, it was that 5-lap difference that Daniel pitting a little bit earlier that made the difference in the end. But you were up close all night. What was it like really fighting it out with him for the win, especially in that middle stint where you two were side by side the entire time?
Yeah, didn't get as much practice as I wanted this week because we had that Road to Pro race on Thursday. But funny enough, it drove exactly like the truck. Thing was a little sideways. You had to lift a little bit, and whoever had that high line had a big advantage. I think Daniel was quicker than me. I don't know about everybody behind me, but he was definitely quicker than me, and he just couldn't pass because these cars lack horsepower. I'll say it till they change it. We need horsepower in these cars because he just had to sit there and keep grinding and grinding and grinding on the bottom. And I think a lap car kind of mixed us up. That's the only reason he got by. So he had to do a slide job as well. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun racing with him, though. Just, wish these cars had more horsepower so we could really show what we could do.
Just want a bit more speed. Like that speed entrance you came in on the pit road, me and Evan were admiring that on that green flag stop. We thought you sped into pit road, but you got it slowed down like just in the nick of time.
Yeah, just practice that again, and Road to Pro is the same braking point, so, just really was trying to get all I could. I know we were about a tenth, 2/10 behind them before the pit stops there, so I was trying to make up time, and the tires just did not come in like I thought they would. So yeah, but that pit road entry was pretty cool. I honestly was on the edge of getting a speeding penalty, but we were able to push that button without getting a penalty.
Well, even our producer said you probably would get a penalty, but we double checked and made sure. Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. And obviously, this is the third time obviously you've been in the booth. We've gotten 2 second-place finishes and a third-place finish. Is it a little frustrating not getting that win, or are you happy right now just running in this top group at the moment?
You're laughing at me. I'm ecstatic. I know I've won races in the past, but I've said it. You can go back to interviews there. I do not like the 1.5 miles with this package. How I'm any good at it blows my mind. I'm astonished to even be in the top 3, especially Homestead and here. And Daytona, it's super speedway, so that ain't my cup of tea at all. So to be in the top 3 is just like a win for me. I can't even believe we've had a good start like that. I can't wait to go in the next week where the brake pedal is required.
I'm glad you and Daniel agree that you need a little more horsepower in some of these cars and maybe want a little more braking in some of these 1.5 miles. But finally, before we let you go, anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
I want to say a big shout out to my sponsor, the RealSimRacing film. Check it out on all social medias. It's going to be a movie coming out on Amazon early 2022 about sim racing. Really, really happy they let me represent it. Thank you so much to them. All the fans for watching, you guys for broadcasting, doing all the admin, and you do a great job. And all the drivers in this league, we had a green flag run at Vegas. We had green flag stops. You don't get that really anywhere else in this sim. So big shout out to everybody.
All right, well, congratulations on the second place, and we'll get to see you at Phoenix next week.
Thanks so much.
And that was Andrew Freenach, who comes in second. And now we move to the third place driver, the Australian Matt Danson. And Matt, you got on pole. You led for a good bit of this race, but in the end, you ended up a few seconds behind after pitting a little bit later than Daniel. What was it like out there just trying to run in that top group and trying to take that win?
First of all, how exciting was qualifying. I got that, I reckon, with about half a second.
Yeah, how did you do that?
I don't know, but I was stressed. I can tell you that for sure.
You were stressed. We thought you weren't making it.
Yeah, I didn't know what the first time was that I set, but I sort of saw the time that I crossed the line to start my first lap, and I was like, geez, that looks like it's going to be close. And then as I, because you know how you can see the counter, the time left in the session. As I started my hot lap, I saw it ticked on to 30 seconds. So I thought, geez, I better hit this lap time, otherwise I'm probably not going to make it. But so that was pretty epic. As far as the race, I haven't been running much of this car, in NIS or a fixed, a open, that sort of thing. So I'm sort of a bit green, I suppose. I don't really know what I'm doing with it. And I mean, it's, to be fair, it drives a lot like the truck, but it's just, I don't know, it had this weird sort of shopping cart kind of feel tonight. It was very much turning from the rear, and that's not my forte. But I was just trying to hang with Daniel and Drew and Sam. He was flying as well. He was doing really good. And just see what happened. I thought that the staying out a couple of laps extra than Daniel was going to be the OP strat, but it just didn't work at all. I don't know why. I felt like I got a pretty good entry. Andrew was right there, and just didn't happen for us. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's just a few laps later. I think that 90 car was kind of good on that longer run, and you were good, kind of middle-ish of that run, especially towards the beginning of the race. You led a lot of laps and really held it on pole. But how was that first few laps as well? Because you got swallowed up immediately. How was it looking at everyone swarming around you early on, especially with this package?
Yeah, that's kind of the disadvantage a little bit of having pole, because you more often than not that sort of thing happens. Straight off turn 2, you're going to get swamped, and I could kind of tell that Daniel was going to cut down low, and I just let him have that. And I think who got me after that, Kyle, I think, who was having a really good race early on. Don't know what happened to him, but yeah, I kind of was just trying to be patient with it. but it's not super daunting, to be honest with you, because you're around super talented drivers. Everyone who is up there I trust, and so you can go side by side. That if they get a little bit tight or if they get loose, whatever the case is, they'll save it, or they'll sort of check up and make sure they don't get into you. They're not going to just drive straight through you. So I think in that respect, it's obviously a credit to the league and the drivers that are in this championship. But that made it not too stressful.
And then finally, we go away from the 1.5 miles and we head to Phoenix next week. Andrew and Daniel are already pretty excited because they get to use the brake pedal. Are you looking forward to that one?
Phoenix and I have an interesting relationship. I sometimes enjoy it, and other times very much don't enjoy it. So I guess we'll see on the day. If I'm here talking to either yourself or Evan, I guess, then I will have had a good day. But I don't know. It's impossible to say.
It's a love-hate relationship. It's listed as it's complicated on Facebook.
Exactly.
All right, Matt, well, the last thing before we let you go, any sponsors, anything you want to thank?
Oh boy, do I have sponsors? Yes. So obviously got to shout out Logitech G. We see them all over the quarter panels there. Astro, Cube Controls, Racetech seats, and the big one on the hood there, which you would have seen, VRS. We had that announcement about, a week ago, I think. And yeah, so super excited to have them on board. Obviously driving for, Horizon merged into Alpha T-Sports. So super excited to be a part of that group. And big things coming from us this year.
All right, well, looking forward to seeing more of it. Looking forward to seeing you on the track, and we'll get to see you next week out in Phoenix.
Thanks, Jonathan. Lovely to speak to you again.
All right, and that was third place Winter Series champion Matt Danton. It's always nice to speak to the drivers afterwards. Obviously, I've spoken to Matt plenty of times, and same with Andrew. I've spoken to Andrew all 3 weeks in a row, Evan.
Well, yeah, maybe an opportunity for him to. I don't know. I always would say that if they're talking to me, they'd probably get annoyed, but I guess it'd be a good thing because I take P1. So if he gets annoyed with
I'm the least desirable person, is what you're telling me.
I just don't think it's personal. I think he just wants to get 1 or 2 spots more up, right? And Matt, if you're tuning in, we are still working on getting that Winter Series trophy to you. It's just a little bit more difficult to ship it to Australia than to California, like we normally have to deal with. So
and that Ethernet cable. I told him I'm building an Ethernet cable across the ocean as well.
Under the ocean at some point. We'll update as the season goes on how the progress on that's going. But 3 races now into the books here in 2021. The trend stays alive. Another new winner. Not a shock here, though, in Daniel Eberhard at all.
No, not really. And I think we really saw in that first run, on the longer run pace, the 90 car was very good. But you can tell, a lot of the drivers felt like they were frustrated a little bit with the setup. They needed a bit more speed and stuff. And even our race winner asked for a bit more speed. So we're heading to Phoenix, though. We're off the 1.5 miles. Where, again, a lot of people said you have to use the brake pedal. It's going to be a bit more interesting, but how crazy is it going to get in the dogleg in the first lap?
You got the big horsepower, small blade, right? And it's funny that 750 horsepower package is still 200 horsepower under what these engines can actually do. There's a look at your points. Andrew Friedage steady as all. Matt Danson enters the top 10 for the first time of this season. But again, Eberhard, Bowie, Miller, the only drivers locked in. Daniel Eberhard, 18th, though, in the points. He needs to be at least a top 20 for those wins to automatically count. Don't think that's an issue. You talked about him missing Homestead. He also needs to start 15 of the 20. So as long as that's all settled, don't have any doubt that you'll see that SKSimRacing.com forward in the postseason. At this rate, not going to have a lot of spots, right? 16 spots in the playoffs, 20 regular season races. I don't think that we will have more than 16 different race winners, but you never know. And again, like I said, a lot of interesting stuff. In the middle portion of the schedule is what I'm interested in, Jonathan, right? You're going to go to COTA. You're going to go to Sonoma. We'll have an all-star race. We might race at Nashville if it comes to the service. If not, likely a Pocono doubleheader, a trip to Road America, another road course in Watkins Glen. The middle portion of the calendar is very interesting. This first half is tame-ish. You got Dega, nothing tame about that. The highlight, obviously, is Bristol Dirt coming up in a few weeks, but next week, Daniel alluded to it in his Victory Lane interview. He is ready to get going because it's a preview of the Championship 4 race at Phoenix. It'll be same track, relatively same weather, daytime conditions as how we'll race for the championship. So this could be a real good look. I bet you a lot of money. We get to November, I'm going to be looking all over round 4 results from Phoenix, trying to guess who's going to be good and whatnot. So next week is a very important race, maybe for Eberhard, the most important irrelevant race he'll ever drive.
Yeah, especially since, and even this one as well, because this comes in that middle portion of the playoffs, that round at 12.
In a nice, tricky round with Dega and the Roval. So it's like the only normal race in that round.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the only normal race. So this was a good showing race, and I think Phoenix is going to be helpful just for kind of seeing like who's going to be in the best come that championship 4 time, but also who's going to be best on the short tracks. We haven't had one yet this season, and we're going to go to 3. Well, 3.5. I'll give Bristol a half. You know, Phoenix, Richmond, and Bristol. So interesting to see.
Back to back to back as well, before we go plate racing once more. We look forward to as this season continues, but until next time, that's it for us here tonight from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So on behalf of our entire team at RealSimRacing, the crew at RaceSpot TV, and your broadcast team tonight, for our in-race reporter Dylan Coyle, our producer Hugo Luis, for Jonathan Burke, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in, and congratulations to Daniel Eberhard, a winner now in 2021, third different points winner in 3 times out. We're back in 1 week's time on Monday, March the 15th. Could be a championship preview for the virtual Phoenix Raceway. That race and every race of the 2021 SimSeats Real Sim Racing Cup Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpot TV. Until next time, good night from Sim City, where it is Daniel Eberhard in Victory Lane, his 20th Cup Series win all time.